Yeah, we're live, so we're gonna be zooming or creating a Zoom that people can watch. And so speak into the speakerphone when you no, so just pick up, it's fine. I don't know if we're gonna have video or anything.
I don't
but
think
that's,
we will.
we'll just do
Yeah.
audio.
Yep.
Great. All right, well, good. Well, thank you all so much for coming. So I'm Brian Wright. I'm the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative. Some familiar faces in the room here, but for any new people, we are working on doing a zoning ordinance update, and this is the meeting to talk about housing and neighborhood character. The format of these meetings is informal, so we're just chatting. We're here to pick y'all's brains. We're taking notes and just listening. May have a few questions just to get y'all going, but really it's just to give you all a forum to talk to us and tell us some things about, in this case, housing and neighborhood character. So we always like to start by introductions. So maybe go around the table, just say who you are and if you represent a group or organization or anything like that.
DC, and I'm a project manager.
Karen, I'm a resident in downtown. There's Ellison, and I'm a resident in city limits.
Oh, I'm Melanie Long. I live downtown and I'm also on city council and I'm a local business owner.
In the back,
Lee Phillips,
just Lee.
Journey of Truth.
There we go. There we go. Journey of
Yeah.
Truth. Yes, that's right. Oh, by the way, I want to remind me to ask you about your tripod later. I've been in the market for one, and I see you landed on one that's quite impressive. So, all right.
Gift from my dad.
Okay.
You're next, ready?
Patty Wolf on City Council.
I'm Brad Kellner. I'm from your neighboring city of Monroe.
I'm Lacey Robinson. I'm also from the city of Monroe.
Stephen Jacques, City of Monroe. They did our code.
Yeah, we're the former client, so
Because they did so good in Monroe.
that's right. Yes, thank y'all for letting us do good work. And you?
Brian Hudson, I'm from TVUDC.
Bill Griffin, resident.
Hey, Griffin. Richardsville.
Michael Joyner. I'm prior planning and zoning.
Is that Barbie, just a Papiona?
All right. Well, good. Well, so we had the kickoff meeting last night where we talked about sort of high level planning principles and all of that. We talked a little bit about housing and neighborhood character. Some of the topics that came up that we'd like to dig into a little bit more were, just housing needs, like what's needed here, what preferences are. We heard about the challenges of aging in place in the community here, which is not unusual. We heard the desire for, say, estate homes or and then in air quotes, $1 million homes. So it's nicer, more expensive homes. And then we talked a little bit also about people downsizing at some point, and then younger demographics that can't afford the $1 million or the estate homes at this point, but they're good for the energy of the community and the long-term sustainability and vitality of the community. So what do we need to know about housing and neighborhood character in more detail beyond those high-level topics?
You
Yes.
want suggestion?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
My suggestion is not a popular one.
Okay. Apartment complexes.
Stop building subdivisions with cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
There should be dead-end streets that when more property is incorporated into the village, they can be tied in rather than another circle of homes.
Yeah.
That's my own suggestion.
Okay, I've got to dig into this more. So as a planner, like that's normally what we're talking about these days. The cul-de-sacs have, caused a lot of the traffic problems you all have here when you don't connect neighborhoods. All the roads have to get out, and all the cars have to get on the collectors. How did you come to this conclusion, this unpopular idea?
I grew up on Long Island, New York.
Okay.
We had streets,
Yeah.
very few cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
We had almost zero traffic problems where I lived.
Yeah.
A small town.
Sure.
And we had friends on streets. We didn't need to have a cul-de-sac to play on. You know, we grew up with friends that lived on this street or that street.
Did you have like neighborhood parks or anything like that?
Yes, we had neighborhood
And that's where you
parks,
go to play?
or we had a big backyard and all the kids came to our house to play.
Yeah.
Because we had a side yard. We played ball.
Right.
We played in the street.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
have a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, cul-de-sacs are definitely a modern invention, more modern, you know, and because you know back in the day, people would say, "Well, why in the world would you not connect the street? How are we going to get from here to there?"
Yes.
And then at some point, the sort of the real estate, industrial real estate complex, if you know, the realtors, you know, started selling this idea of safety and seclusion and you know, sort of an enclave, you know. But what studies have shown, to your point, that people who live on a cul-de-sac have a handful of community connections, and those who live on streets that are connected have a much greater number of connections with other people. Some people would say, "Ooh, that sounds awful. I don't want to be connected to other people," but a lot of people would like that.
Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
I couldn't get away with a thing that another didn't know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, and strangely too, they also have studies that show that while everybody sort of touts the safety functions of cul-de-sacs, they're actually less safe for children because kids have this sort of false sense of security that there's not through traffic, but then somebody comes out of their driveway and they're not looking, or they've got bushes there or whatever, and next thing you know, the kid gets hit. I was surprised when I saw that statistic. So thanks.
And there's a bigger chance of being burglarized if you're on a cul-de-sac because it's private and they
Yeah.
can get away with more.
Yeah.
They can kidnap your child and nobody knows.
Watch out for that.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Anybody else have any hot takes
Are
on
we
things?
talking about the looks of the homes or the communities?
All of the above.
Okay, because one of the things that's a big sticking point for me, and I'd like to hear from everybody else, is the roads are too narrow and we have too much on-street parking. So it looks trashy. The fire department can't get through. So I would like to eliminate on-street parking, however that is. We've been working the last few rezones we've done. We've required condition of zoning to have really long driveways so that it accommodates all the vehicles that live there. So I don't know if there needs to be a formula that if this is a 3-bedroom house, your driveway needs to be so many feet to accommodate the number of drivers. But I think having the roads an extra lane wide with maybe on-street parking allowed down one side, that leaves you 2 complete lanes of traffic. Because one needs to go no further than go down here to Terra Commons, to that townhouse community. You can't even get through over there. And it's just it's not safe and it just looks trashy.
All right, so let's dig into this. This is one of those things in the world of planners that is basically what you'll see with transportation engineers, planners, urban designers, trying to create more walkable, safer streets and all that. One of the things that people are doing these days are what we call road diets. So you can imagine it's skinnying them up as opposed to making them wider. And so I'm glad because I was about to ask you for an example of one of the ones that looks trashy. So we're going to go take a look at Terra Commons. Just for what it's worth, when a road is wider, there are studies where they show a direct correlation to the width of the road and the speed that the cars drive, right? And so what we'll find is cities will have, they'll be getting calls for speeding all the time. We need to have a policeman here, or we need to have a speed bump or whatever. And so then they go in and retrofit and put in these speed humps or whatnot. Typically, the first people to complain about the speed humps are the people who live right by the speed hump because they're the ones who have to hit it every single time. And what we always think about it as sort of these traffic calming sort of retrofit measures is that that's a road that's not designed properly in the first place, right? So when you think about some of these, and I talk a lot about it when we're referring to character, I mentioned last night, places that people love, places that you might go on vacation, you visit, you see in pictures or on people's Pinterest or in a coffee table book. A lot of them might have, oh, is that it? I see what you mean.
Talking about the drive, but
Yeah.
when
that's
you're
what you
talking
mean.
about what you're talking about, you're talking about like the roads that have like the island down the middle, and the lanes are two separate.
Sometimes, but like you'll see in like a lot of these really charming historic towns and villages, they do have on-street parking. Their roads are very narrow. No one would describe them as trashy looking. But the fire department's like, ugh, those roads. Yet they somehow always make it through. They just have to be a little bit more careful. They take it slow. Used to the fire trucks they would go as fast as they could. And since, in the past, I don't know, 20 years, I'm making up that number, but I've started hearing more and more from fire departments that they realize that hurrying actually is more dangerous than just going at a reasonable pace and getting there. The sort of the window of saving lives and keeping things from burning down is not measured in seconds typically. I mean, yes, ultimately it is, but it's not in sort of statistically. And so they don't speed now. And so trying to get through some of these places. But what we'll also see is like we're working for the city of Charleston at one point, and obviously, if you've ever been to Charleston, they've got these fantastic, historic, beautiful streets, but very narrow, some of them. And then other areas, it's very suburban. Looks like any street y'all got out here, they don't put that on the webpage, but they have that. So what do y'all do? And they're like, well, we have that other fire truck. We have the little fire truck for downtown, and then the big fire truck for everything else. So we'll need to think through that, because when we hear people in your comp plan talking about walkable and safer and more pedestrian friendly and bike friendly and all that stuff, if we do widen, it can work against those goals. But the street view that I'm seeing here, the place you were just talking about, is not anything that we would recommend doing either. So it's.
And even the new rental, well, not the rental neighborhood, but the new neighborhood, Eleonora. It's a new neighborhood
Yeah, we
up the
drove
street.
past it
You go through
yesterday.
there, the driveways are this long and everybody's parked in the street. It's just a poor look.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things too, when you, and I mentioned this last night, when I showed that, this building says people live here, this one says cars live here. And the one where cars live here, had the garage right on the front. There's nowhere for anybody to park except for, in front of it. And half the time if it's pulled up close enough, now they're parked across the sidewalk, if they even have one, a sidewalk that is. And so pushing that garage back, like you'd see in the historic homes, gives them an opportunity, if it's even, if you're even parking off of the street versus an alley, you can drive past the house. We did this really cool study one time where a developer was complaining. He was like, well, I don't want to push the garage back any more than 10 feet. And I was like, 10 feet, that doesn't really help much, even if the house is set back far enough that you could park and not be over the top of the sidewalk. And we built a 3D model and we showed what it looks like from 10 feet versus if you push it back even just 20 feet. And basically, and I flip back and forth between it. And as you look down the street, it looks like a parking lot on the 10-foot version, because the cars have to stick out in front of the house. On the 20-foot version, they can at least be, even with the front facade of the house. And as you look down the sidewalk, you just see the front yard or the side, the porch or whatever. So it makes a big difference. So we'll work on that as
Are
well.
you talking about detached garages?
Sometimes,
Requiring detached
not
garages?
requiring, but sometimes, a lot of times you'll see, you'll have basically, you can drive past, and then either turn and, the garage will be side loaded, or it can basically be offset and connected still. But a lot of places do have the detached garages, not just the historic home. They did a lot, but even new homes today have them as well.
The neighborhoods aside, which is a good point, our main street, which seems to be more of a focus now than it used to be. Everybody wants Loganville walkable and whatnot.
Yeah.
We have a problem with 18-wheelers going down. I don't know that anything can be done about that. I mean, that's a GDOT problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's,
But that is really in my opinion, tearing our downtown up
yeah.
as far as walkability and just many other things.
Yeah, we have them in downtown Franklin, the 18-wheelers, but I don't feel like there's tons that come down. And so I'd be interested to know sort of like how many come through here. And it is annoying when they come because they'll like, there's a coffee shop at the corner where there's a light and they'll get hung at the light. And if you're sitting there, you have to literally just wait for the light to change because you can't hear them idling. They're so loud. And of course they rumble and mess up old buildings and stuff. And just the size of them, because y'all's Main Street is only really 1-story buildings too. We've got at least 2 stories, so the sort of height to width ratio, and then the trucks don't seem so big and makes
And
it seem
they're right
bigger.
up next to the sidewalk,
Mhm.
so if they vary off the beaten path
Yes.
just ever so slightly,
Yeah,
we're in trouble, or somebody walking that path is in trouble.
yeah. Y'all's streetscape on Main Street is a bit
Lacking.
yeah. I was gonna say minimalist.
Hey, start watching how many
Yeah.
18-wheelers come through here.
Yeah.
It's just a
It's
lot.
a lot.
Yeah, when you don't have like proper street trees and sidewalks that are wide enough and all that. But I mean, even in spite of it though, like it's not like, we're taking pictures and, like, oh, this is the best Main Street, but it's like, you can tell people are working hard. I like the vibrant colors and I don't know how y'all feel about that, but just as an outsider, I was like, oh, that's somebody's trying to do something, little outdoor
They
seating.
really
and-
are, yes, they
so
are.
you gotta give it to them. So imagine if you made just a little bit of improvements to it. I think people might want to go down there and hang out. So do you see people sitting out there on the little cafe or tables or?
I don't, but then
It's more of
they
a
may be,
decoration.
and I'm just not going by
Right,
when they
right,
are.
yeah.
But Brandon, you're down here a lot, so maybe you should answer that.
I see people there, especially on weekends, taking photos in front of the murals, stuff like that.
Okay,
I see people bringing food to that little pocket park out there eating.
yeah,
A lot of the businesses have a lot of good synergy. They'll go get a drink at everybody's, or they'll go to Braxton's to go shopping. And then they'll come in their day at the arcade or start at the arcade. But it's only like maybe a 2 to 3 hour day
yeah.
versus when you go to Monroe, you spend all day there.
I
Yeah.
see a lot of people at the town green.
Mhm.
They'll be sitting on that pavilion,
Yeah.
eating the lunch or something. I see, because I come up my street dead ends right there. There's people there almost every time I come up.
Park has a lot of people
there.
Yeah.
Weekdays are pretty dead.
Yeah,
A lot of our business numbers are very low during the week.
it's always worrisome when I see like nonprofits that are in storefronts and stuff on a main street. That's an indication that the rent's so low that it makes sense for them to be there. And it's usually not a high traffic kind of pedestrian sort of thing coming in, or sometimes if it is like, it's like some social services, it's like, okay, this is a place where we want it to be pedestrian friendly, but now we got, people coming in who are, have a lot of need and they're not there for kind of shopping and hanging out and doing the things. And it can be a challenge. So, okay. So Main Street, what about, we talked about this a little bit last night, and how do we incentivize people to do, to redevelop things or to, have some additional stuff going on. And we talked about if you allow it to be mixed use, then they get, more square footage that they can lease out or whatever. And we were talking about in the context of redeveloping parking lots and stuff. But when I look at a struggling Main Street like that has sort of land around it, and if, the buildings aren't sort of specimens of, architecture, have you guys thought at all about allowing for some sort of residential above to happen on Main
We
Street?
talked about that as a council.
Yeah.
And I think we're all in agreement that we're okay with that.
Okay. One thing that's neat is, because even though your buildings aren't masterpieces, they're neat and they're historic, and it's hard to do something charming these days when it's new for whatever reason. Even if you copy the old building, but there are ways that you can, sort of preserve the facade of what's there and make that the storefront, and you can kind of build up around it and things like that. So, so that might be kind of neat.
Brandon just keep pointing to Brandon because he's got a building down there and he added a second floor to it.
Oh, yeah.
Save that old building. Yeah, do that still package.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
can't put weight on those walls because
Yeah.
they're so old.
Why'd you do it?
I love this town.
There you go. That's good. That's a good
And
sign.
my daughter's here. I want them to stay here.
Yeah. So you figured it out one way or the other. Perfect. That's okay. Well, we'll be expecting big things from you when we make it easier to do than it even is now. What kind of challenges did you run into in trying to do that? Besides the physical challenges. You go around the corner.
Fire code is tough.
Yeah.
Even in old.
Mhm.
We didn't have a 6-inch, it was a 6-inch water line go to that side of the street. So we could only build 99 occupants. So we had to build in a lot of dead space in there. Because if we went over that, we'd have to have fire suppression. And I'd have to trench 6-inch water main all the way from past Melanie's house. All the way up to the building.
Wow.
And it was just not financially feasible.
Yeah.
Now, if I would have done that and paid for that, then everybody could have tied into that.
Right. What if the city were to do that? Because they wanted to.
That's what I'm talking about, the incentive,
Yeah.
incentivizing people to do better and build better
Yeah.
and do, the city's gonna have to
Right.
kick in and contribute at some point.
Yeah. You hear about cities doing that kind of stuff for like industrial parks all the time. They like put in whole roads and all kinds of infrastructure to hopefully one day get some factory or warehouse or whatever. But now people are starting to realize the economic benefits of their historic core, their main street. It has this, maybe not dollar for dollar as like an industrial park would, but when folks start looking at, do I want to put my business in this community, or my industrial business, where are my workers going to want to live? They're going to have a place to hang out, and like, oh, well, Snellville's already got it all figured out. I'll just do something over there, I guess, whatever. So there is a tie-in. You nearly can start to see, and especially because your downtown is so little, it's not that big of an undertaking relatively compared to some other places, and so you can nearly see it as sort of like an amenity in the same way that you would see a park or something like that. So yeah, well, good. Well, maybe we'll get you to be able to fill up that wasted space you had to
Oh,
make.
no, I'm done. It's not headache.
You get that pipe in there and you can just punch through some walls and stuff. Yes, sir. Can you speak up?
Asked a couple of people this, but does it make any sense for downtown to be its own district, like with boundaries?
It's gonna have to be because of your noise ordinances and alcohol. It's gonna have to be its own district, I think.
But it's not current.
It is the downtown overlay
But
district.
it's only this street and half of that street.
It's not very large.
Okay. Yeah, I
But we actually
remember.
have a triangle in between the two major highways, possibly could be.
Yeah, I remember the first time we were working in Monroe, we were looking at where the downtown boundaries needed to be and looking at some areas of possible expansion that made sense to expand it.
I think the difference between here and Monroe is that Monroe City town, downtown's all 78. Here, when I grew up, 78 was 2 lanes from Athens all the way to the mountain. And this one intersection out here was mainly the only thing here. And now you've got a 6-lane highway out there.
Yeah.
Really takes away from downtown.
Yeah. Well, and, the good news is though that a lot of places have their main street is a state route, and they've like GDOT's kind of reluctantly letting people sort of reclaim to some extent their the heart of their community, and so maybe that's something to look at moving forward. But let's talk. Unless anybody has anything else to say about that.
This city spends 99% of its time talking about Main Street.
Perfect. That's
And
what
I
was
think
shifting.
that this code rewrite should talk about what affects the most people,
Yeah.
which is all the other stuff.
Yeah,
And I know,
downtown-
Patty, you've had a lot of architectural, concerns about the architectural standards.
Yeah, downtown is easy, by the way. It's very easy to do. It's just obvious and people want it to be great, I think is why, people focus on it so much. And that's why I was just pivoting. So yes. So what are your architectural thoughts? What kind of things are not working well?
all our neighborhoods and the side by side cracker box houses and, I'm sick of that. I call that high density. A lot of it is high density. A lot of it I just plain don't like. But it's the same old, same old, same old. And if you want, like Melanie has said, and I repeat this all the time, you build for what you want to come into your city. And so far, we're not building, I don't think, in my opinion, what we, want our city to look like overall. And somebody mentioned last night, like some of the buildings that have been on 78 for years, like the gun and the pool. I don't even know who mentioned that, the pool hall or whatever you want to call it. But some of it, we just need to, and I don't know that we ever have the authority to go in and say, we need you to do something with your building. But I don't know if you said it or somebody said it last night, but once they have something they have to do, repair or whatever, then we can say, okay, now you have to, that can be in our ordinance.
Right.
All that tacky stuff up and down 78 is bothersome. It just makes our whole city, because that's what most people travel to 78. And I just think it's eyesore, most of it.
Are y'all to the point? I hear the general sentiment that everybody's kind of tired of the cookie cutter and the sort of like getting developers second best kind of stuff. And are you guys to the point, do you think economically that y'all can be pickier and a little tougher on what happens here?
Depends on who you ask.
Well, I give an example. I'm a locksmith, so I go into a lot of areas. I never knew that out on Piney Grove Road, there's a neighborhood and the street is it's just a one small street. It's called Worth Avenue. That ought to tell you right there. I went into that neighborhood to do some lock work. Shocked me. Multi-million-dollar homes on 3 and 5 acre lots. And the homes that are built were sold before they were built. There are people with money that want to live here, but they don't want to live here because of what it looks like. There are no standards. We have catered to the low end of the spectrum for so long that that's what we've gotten. And so there is nothing for people. And I went to Monroe to change locks for a lady, and I asked her where she moved here from. She said Loganville, and this was in Monroe. I said, really? Why did you move from Loganville to Monroe? She said, well, we stayed in an apartment in Loganville looking for a place to live. And she said that there is nothing for sale in Loganville. Everything's for rent. That's our number one problem. You can't own in Loganville hardly anymore. Everything's a rental. And she said, so we got tired of it. She said, so we moved to Monroe because here we could own a home. In Loganville, everything that came up was a rental. And she said, and by the way, you need to tell whoever's in charge, because I didn't tell her I was on city council. She said, those apartments aren't doing Loganville any favors. She said, we had to get out as soon as we could. She said, the drugs, the crime, the loud music, all the problems that come with it. And I agree. When, like Patty said, my motto has been build for what you want to attract. We haven't been attracting what I don't think anybody in here wants to be surrounded with. So it's like you said last night, the egg or the chicken. Somebody's got to go first.
Right.
And I think just to have these developers build a higher standard, I think they'll be able to.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is today, but I know first time we worked in Monroe was 13 years ago or so. And I was shocked. They were at like 80% rental property, something wild. And there were like 3 landlords in the 80%. What do y'all, is it the same now?
It's down to about 65%.
Yeah.
Okay.
65.
Okay. But I guess my point is, don't be as concerned about, whether or not you have a higher percentage of this or that, because we're looking at, going forward. Right. And so even though they have that high percentage of rental, and it seems like they've been working to kind of get that down. What the other thing, I'm getting my internet to work for some reason, but I was trying to look up, is Monroe or Snellville, are they much wealthier communities than Loganville? Do they have higher budgets?
So the city itself, are you talking about the people that live there?
Yeah.
The people that live there? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Monroe may have some wealthier folks.
And Monroe operates basically on the same budget we do as far as incoming revenue and all that kind of stuff. And you just see the difference between what they're doing versus,
That's what I was getting at.
it's very, odd.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't put my finger on why, except they have at least from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
They have a wonderful, development manager. I don't even know what to call her, but whoever comes up with all these ideas. that
I
are
think his
just-
name is Brad.
Okay.
We got Logan Probst, is probably the main.
Is
Yeah,
it?
city manager.
Somebody
development
needs to
director.
get a lot of credit for what's
Yeah.
going on in Monroe, because what they do is just so unique and so,
Yeah.
you know, they got little people, fake people sitting
Oh,
around.
you're talking about like, I know, it's a team effort though, like Sandy Daniels, the downtown development.
Yeah, y'all agree with me? Because I'm on the outside driving through Monroe, but
Sure.
I think what you're doing is just,
It's a team effort. though.
it's
I mean,
good.
everybody-
It's good
It's a system
stuff.
council and it's a lot of things.
It's good stuff.
It isn't one person. It's a lot.
There's
It's
people with
a lot
lots
of
of
cogs that
vision.
wheel.
Everybody that I talk to in surrounding communities, it's like, oh, Monroe really has it figured out, which is unusual because apparently they're also not letting it go to their head. Because a lot of times when a nearby community has things figured out, everyone's like, I don't want to be them, even though they're like, where do y'all go on Friday night? Well, we go over there, you know. That's more of an attitude of the people.
Certainly, we're not here as this to be better than you guys or anything like that. We're here to offer some, wherever we can, because like you can tell by my board in my office, that things aren't always so great. I mean, my board's on fire right now with all kinds of silliness and nonsense and anything else you could think of. There's always something that has to be dealt with, and there's always new projects and old projects that have to be addressed. And so there's always something.
The
That's
thing
going
is
on.
though that one way or another, even in the midst of kind of the things that probably maybe drive you nuts, people can go through and they see the good stuff. They're like, whoa, look at that. Wow. Look." Not every place has that. A lot of it is just every place has just the frustrations and not the successes. So yeah.
Y'all done great things with and especially because it started out, I wasn't there around here then. Didn't y'all have like a lot of writing on your buildings and just, trash and whatnot? And somebody came
They were
in.
just empty, I mean, downtown was just empty. I mean, 10 years ago,
Okay.
it was just empty. I mean, you didn't want to hang out there.
I mean, it's not like it was always this way.
Yeah.
They took something kind of like we're trying to do
Yeah.
that was.
Well, you had
I
Mike
thought was-
Cash on the corner there. I mean, you didn't want to hang out there for 10
Yeah,
minutes,
Yeah.
And y'all have completely turned it around.
Well, Charleston used to be trashy too. Charleston was
Really?
Oh yeah. Before Mayor Riley came in, he's not the mayor now, but he was there for a long time, and it took decades, and he turned it around to make it the place where it is. Franklin, if you've been to Franklin, in the 80s, apparently it was like biker bars and pool halls on Main Street, and
Somebody had a vision.
yeah, they're like, okay, that's one too many people got killed on Main Street. We're gonna do something different now. And so it can happen. But I've just been interested because y'all have a lot of peer communities that are doing good. We've been hanging out in Snellville because that's where our hotel is. And we like Snellville's
I
bad.
moved
Okay. Tell me about that.
21 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And that
Okay.
county is saturated.
Yeah.
And you're talking about two different counties.
Yeah.
Walton County at the time had more of a rural thing.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot about Monroe, but Monroe is the county seat
Yeah.
and really one of the only big counties here. I mean, one of the big cities here.
Yeah.
Loganville has grown, and Loganville sits right in. I mean, half of Loganville is Walton, and half part of it is Gwinnett.
Yeah.
And as the expansion has gone, it's come this way. Snellville is overexpanded. They've just recently built their downtown,
Yes.
but I don't think their downtown makes sense.
Hmm.
Lawrenceville makes much more sense.
Lawrenceville,
Has a square. Lawrenceville has a square. Lawrenceville's the county seat.
it doesn't make sense in how it's laid out or that they have one.
Well, they building their new apartments and everything.
Yeah.
It's walkable community,
Yeah.
but people are still driving.
Yes. But less.
They are putting homes on any 5-acre lot that they can find.
Mhm.
Just a subdivision I used to live in. They just built a 30-home community on a very small area.
Yeah.
With, less than a 1/4 acre lots. And Gwinnett County, and I'm not talking ugly about Gwinnett County, but it has traditionally overbuilt for its infrastructure. And this goes back 30 years. I mean, I could, people think I'm wrong, but it really has. And there's nothing left to build.
Yeah, well, and to your point, I mean, Snellville, I had the sense, because we ate at that Mexican restaurant with all the vines and stuff hanging down right in the middle of their downtown, or at the edge of their downtown. And I had the sense that that was probably a bit much for y'all, like even if you're like, oh, we need to do something with our downtown, that's probably a bit intense. However, even in the areas of kind of their just sort of suburban strip highway, something about it was elevated beyond what I'm seeing around here. And even just that, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but that, like that gateway thing that they got there, like, when you're in Snellville, like there's no question. You're not like, where's the sign? And it's like just a traffic signal, really, but they just did something to kind of spruce it up. And
that was a DOT project 8-10 years ago.
yeah, I
To
mean,
do that intersection.
see,
Evermore CID.
Well, Evermore CID did the
Yeah.
gateway, but DOT redid that whole intersection. which
yeah,
I think
confuses
Evermore
a
did
lot.
the signage.
yeah.
That used to be just a four-way intersection.
The good news is that the DOT let them do something special there like that. I don't know what that cost, but it was,
Well, they have a self-taxing district.
a what?
CID district.
Okay. Got it. So Anna told me, we were talking about incentives last night, and however you feel about their downtown, we think that it was a public-private partnership, with the city, county, and a developer that was able to, transform that and give did they have a downtown at all before?
So
Yeah. So you can imagine that it probably has a overall positive impact on that community. They've got a downtown now. They've got the economics people coming in, shopping, doing all the stuff. And to your point, while it is a walkable area and people do still have to drive, they have to drive less than they would before. If they were just in an apartment complex out in the suburbs and they wanted to go get some Mexican food, they certainly couldn't walk to it or to the library or whatever. So it's all relative. But having that public-private partnership structure in place to give you whatever it is that you want, your version of that might be instructive to kind of look at how they accomplish that.
But to speak to what you're talking about, the only people you're catering to are the people that live in the Grove, because I know a lot of people live in Snellville. They don't go into that area.
Why not?
Just
It's the people that live there.
It's been packed.
Packed. He said it's packed. So maybe some people don't like it. Like if it, for instance, if that Mexican restaurant, I don't know what we paid for our dinner, but I had the sense that it was more probably than the Mexican restaurant in the strip mall, but our experience of being there was great. We had a nice time. We were able to walk around out there. It was a, kind of a different experience. And we will remember Snellville as a result of that place, right?
You'll remember positively, it sounds.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though this also was too spicy. So those are the kind of things, like everything that you see, like when I point out something as like, oh, that's interesting or inspiration, whatever, don't ever think that I'm being literal and like, oh, you should do that thing. It's like, okay, well, what did they do? What's your version of that, if anything, because there's always lessons we learn in every community, that are doing things, so sometimes bad lessons too. You go like, oh, don't do that. So do what?
You gotta make Loganville.
Yeah, exactly. That's like you talking about. It has to be the essence of Loganville. We can't, no matter how much you like Monroe, you can't just do Monroe,
Back in the day, though, back when my family moved here in 1982. So back in the day, Loganville was the place to be. In Monroe, like you were saying, the buildings were empty. Everything was horrible.
Yeah.
Loganville didn't grow properly.
Yeah.
I think Monroe, when they got ready to grow, they go, don't do what Loganville did. Right. And so then they took a different approach. Now we're sitting here going, we've screwed up.
Yeah.
How can we back up? How can we just let too much come in too low quality again. So there's not much land left. So that's why I keep asking you, how do you incentivize people to fix things and make them better? Even existing neighborhoods, because you can't go in there because it's done now. So you can only go forward. So there's not a lot of land left. And so I know you're going to talk about infill tonight, but there's not a lot of land left. So how do you make what you've already screwed up better?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of that exercise that we were doing last night of identifying what areas people are comfortable with seeing things be fixed, if you will. And you kind of, and then going from there, I think is going to be real instructive for us. The other thing is, interestingly, we, and again, not suggesting this whatsoever, but just to show you the extreme, like there are some communities around the country that have realized that the whole cul-de-sac thing and sort of disconnecting and all that is not a good thing to do. And they're actually retrofitting their neighborhoods. In some cases, you'll see there's not a house at the end of a cul-de-sac. That's easy, you know, and there's usually another cul-de-sac that's pretty darn close and they'll connect them. But in some cases, like the city will buy the house that's at the, you know, in the spot where you need to connect. Now, the neighbors go bananas, right? Because I bought this because I wanted to be on, I didn't want the, you know, but the next people who buy the house don't even think twice about it. In fact, they're like, oh, this is so great. I can connect through and whatever. So anything is possible, even something as close to home as that. The stuff on the highways and the places that people, besides whoever owns that piece of property in particular, but there's no like sort of community affection for, that's just easy to deal with zoning wise. And then to your point, how do you make it happen is the trick. So I think ultimately, you know, figuring out, you know, that balance of regulation and incentive versus just patience. Sometimes, unfortunately, you just have to be patient and you go, dang it, like we put that new code in place and it's been 10 years. And then on 10-year and one day, it's time for somebody to do something with their business. But there are plenty of places where we work where they go, wait, you mean I can put my building closer to the street? Y'all aren't going to make me have excessive amounts of parking that I don't need. I can do outdoor seating. I can do whatever. And next thing you know, they're crunching the numbers and figuring out like, well, that's going to improve my business. I wasn't planning on doing anything to my building for the next 5 or 10 years, but I'm going to do that now because that's better. That's going to be better for my business. And then you start getting those things. You get, you know, one person starts to do something. Everybody's like, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Catches on.
Yes. And the other business owners, and there's always some that'll be stragglers forever and maybe never do it, but it's incrementally getting better and better and better. So, one of the things we talked about from a housing perspective last night was the idea of the bigger is better kind of concept, because bigger is more expensive and it's going to be maintained and not rented and all that. When you look at a place like Franklin, I was going to say Monroe, but I don't know. So like Franklin, right, where the downtown is super desirable. You know, you can't touch a house for under $1 million. And somebody does a little cottage court of tiny houses in there, and they like say buy one lot, and you know there's an old house that somebody put up in the 1970s, and take it down, and they put a cottage court in there, and it has a little pocket park, and you know 6 or 8 tiny houses. On a per square foot basis, they're going to be way more expensive than whatever the nicest subdivision you have, you know, at the outskirts is, no matter how big those lots are. And so one of the things that may help you all to focus on is that idea of the per square foot cost rather than the total cost. Because, you know, ultimately it's hard for somebody to wrap their mind around, I'm going to rent this tiny house, but it's so expensive. But but maybe, knowing the preferences have changed generationally, people are renting by choice now, not because they have to. And so if we say, well, we don't want rental because that equals this, but what rental equals has changed, we've got to update our equation, figure out, okay, well, what are we really trying to prevent? And, like in Monroe, they talk about these landlords, these three slumlords that have all these houses and then whatever, and they're all falling apart, and we'll talk to the people who live in those houses, and they're like, yeah, we don't like it either, but the jerk won't fix it up, and whatever. And so, because a lot of times when people talk about concerns about rental, they quickly start talking about the renter, but a lot of times the worst thing is the landlord. And so when you got something that is nice on a per square foot, expensive on a per square foot basis, that landlord, they can't afford to let it fall to pieces. Then there's also discussions about, do you have, does it have to be, if you have a rental, do you have to have the landlord living on premises or nearby or whatever? So there's some ways to think about that too. So, because what I fear is that comment about you can't age in place here. And I probably told you all the story. We were working in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and they fought and fought and fought for 1 acre zoning, because to them that meant something. And then the whole community got to the age where they didn't want to or couldn't maintain their house, and unless they could afford home health care, they had to leave the town because they had fought to keep everything smaller out. And so, trying to find a way to make sure y'all don't find yourself in that situation, or their only choice is to go to some, assisted living in the strip mall, or, something like that. So that's just sort of the cautionary tale as we talk about these things together. So rather than suggesting the solution, we identify the concerns and the goals, and then we can figure out what a good solution is. What are we doing on time? 15 more minutes. All right. Anything that I talked about last night, because I was a bit rough on building design and quality and architectural stuff last night. Anything I said last night concerning to anybody about, just kind of, what about those images I showed of the national home builder did these in one community and these awesome ones in this other community? Did that resonate with anybody?
Because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The last maybe 4 or 5 cycles of city council has just approved everything.
Yeah.
And our code wasn't written in such a way. Now, the last few that we've had come through, we put a lot of conditions of zoning to try to compensate for a lack of a good ordinance.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, if you're talking to people, I don't know, you talked to all the council members, you probably heard a lot about how strict we want it to be, because we don't want there to be any questions. A developer comes into this town, he looks at that and he goes, oh, wow, I can't make any money there. That's not the guy we want here anyway, right? So we're going to weed those out naturally. We want the person that's going to come here and build those quality products that look good, that, have the long driveways and the garage, that's what we want. So
How do you define that though? I've sat in a lot lately, and it's like, we want a certain length of driveway, no parking on the street. But then when it comes to the things that make it a higher level look, like the awnings or the porches or the whatever,
Right.
That's where I have a hard time saying how to
because
describe that.
Yeah, we don't have any architectural standards,
right.
and that's
the
one of the things
standard
we're
we're
looking
talking
for.
about, yeah.
One of the things that, and I've been here a long time. I even beat you because I grew up here, but one of the things early on, I was opposed to duplexes. Because where I live, you didn't know what was going to come in and rent them.
Yeah.
So I came and did the same thing. I came to the council, but what we ended up with was we got the duplexes, but they were brick and they were very well maintained, and the lawn and the look. That's the ones down in
Yeah,
yeah.
they
And it
are
turned out
better.
nice,
Right.
but there had to be a standard in there because they came in not wanting brick. They wanted to do cheaper, and the council said you had to do brick. And then that was fine with us, and it has been fine. I was worried about the traffic, but
They're nice.
that ended up being, that
You
ended
have
up
to
being.
hire in clientele
Yeah,
in there.
it
You
is.
never have any problems.
And I don't have a problem with like townhomes. I don't really, I mean, even apartments are fine, but townhomes, and subdivisions. But the look of them needs to be elevated because a lot of them just look cheap and the same.
Well, they use
You
cheap
had a picture
materials and
last
cheap.
night.
And
Town.
what faces a lot of the highways are the backside. So the front side may look, but then the backside looks like you got a bunch of saltine boxes lined up along the highway. So I was thinking maybe some of the back needs to be as pleasing, maybe not as much, but as pleasing and as different as the front side, so that the people driving by going,
Yeah, no, I mean.
that's what Loganville has
Yeah,
become.
exactly. Like the way that we think about it these days is, unless, I mean, sometimes even if you don't usually see a house on like a big highway or whatever, but on some of these bigger streets that carry a lot of traffic, like those streets will always seem gross and speedy so long as you treat them like sort of, we call it a car sewer, and what people are doing when you turn your back to the street like that, you've said this can never be good, right? What the way that we typically will do it is you actually flip their house around, and that street is the street for those houses, but they are set back enough, there's sidewalk, there's street trees, all that stuff, so there's public improvement along, or even by the developer, but you start to create a streetscape so that when people drive down there, it feels great, it feels like a nice street. Now, you may not, if you're enough traffic's coming on the street, you don't want a bunch of driveway cuts going onto it. And so that's where an alley would come in. So you would access the house from the rear alley. And we've noticed y'all have to do that sort of back. And that was a very common thing in the 80s and 90s. People would flip their houses around like that, or even put up a really gross looking vinyl fence or something. And so, we know how to fix that. But to your point, even if, and I'm not conceding that the driveway and all that stuff we talked about earlier is the way to go, but even if that was like whatever your preference is for the perfect street, you put a hideous looking building in the perfect location with exactly the streetscape you think is great, it doesn't matter. If you went and you took, let's say, pick your favorite main street anywhere around here, and let's say you took your least favorite strip mall, right? And you put it in the same spot, right on the main street, it's still going to be awful. You'll still hate it, So the placement and all of that is important to some extent, but the design of the building, how it's articulated, all that stuff. Now, I have a question, and my team member who will be able to answer me isn't here yet, so I'll ask him later, but y'all may know off the top of your head. Do you guys have any restrictions or inability to regulate architecture in the state of Georgia?
In the state.
Yeah, Robbie, do you know about that?
Robbie,
Architectural restriction, regulating architecture in Georgia, is that something you can do?
I mean, we have standards that exist for our mixed use.
Right now, we're not. Right now, we're not.
You're not what?
We're not limited.
Okay.
They keep trying.
Yeah, they keep trying.
They keep trying.
Yeah, the home builders association in Tennessee, North Carolina, a lot of different states have lobbied at the state level, and you basically can't regulate nearly anything with architecture.
We have it in session right now. I think it's SB.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I can't remember the number.
Whichever one it is this year.
But they can
The
start
topic du jour this year.
doing, we wouldn't be able to control vinyl siding and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
No,
exactly.
they
Not
don't
even
want us to
that
do
basis.
just the foundations, and the garage locations are now what they're going after. So
Yeah,
now they don't want me to
TB.
recess the garage anymore. They're calling it I forgot the creative word for it. I'm gonna call it the parking location of the vehicle inside the residence.
Yeah,
So they're using terminology, they're trying to use terminology to call it the garage. So we'll come up with a new term
yeah,
for it to get around that. So I can call it
right.
the receptacle for the location of the vehicle.
Yes. So if y'all want to go and like complain about things, show up at those state hearings, because to me, like I was just saying, like it doesn't matter if we get everything else right, if the building is ugly, and people, how do you determine what's ugly? Well, there are certain things that you can look around and you can say, okay, well, here are the common architectural styles that are in the community. We can do a visual preference survey. We actually have statistically valid information. We say that, 98% of the people in this community prefer this building that looks like this. And, people don't want something that's very ultra modern or whatever, and, figure out. And then you have, measurable criteria that goes along with that. Windows need to align, windows need to have a header over them. So it looks like the brick above is being visually supported, and little things like that, the average person's not going to know how to write down what those standards are. But if I point out to you, you're like, yeah, I knew there was something weird about that building that I didn't like. I didn't know why. It felt weird to me. And so
How do you do
Yeah.
that and not go too far where you're impeding on someone's taste and right,
okay,
to their
so
own property?
so here's the thing.
Because I don't have a garage, but I mean, I think,
Whatever do you do?
I don't know what I'm gonna do in about 10 years. I know I have a long driveway.
There you go.
But
So, all right, so here's the way I think about it, right? And there's starting to be case law that supports this. So the design of things, of an individual's things, has an impact on the rest of the community, right? And so I started saying this to my dad years ago, as the attorney. I was like, surely there's like a health, safety, and welfare, like mental health thing. And ha ha ha. That's what they're starting to do now. They're starting to actually use that strategy there. There's an economic consideration that goes along with it, right? So if nobody except for the owner or their architect likes modern architecture, I'm not picking on modern architecture, I'm just saying, and now they wanted to turn your whole main street into modern architecture, it could ruin their downtown, for instance. So they just went for it, right? And so it isn't just in the same way that you regulate an individual's many things, like the use of their property or whatever. Why is the thing that's the most obvious to everyone else the one thing that's sacred? And it assumes that the owner actually even cared. It assumes that they had taste, right? Sometimes they just go on uglyhouses.com and they download a plan and they go like, do this, and as the third thing they came to, and they liked it better than the two uglier ones they saw before. Or somebody doing a commercial business is, they're just like, oh, I just want the cheapest thing. There was no design consideration in the first place. So we're not infringing upon their right to express themselves or free speech in that way. But just think about all the things we do regulate. Why is that one something we're all afraid of? So ultimately, though, if you get it in before the state changes those rules, typically, there may be some sort of grandfathering. But so don't dilly dally on that if it's already being considered.
I thought it'll pass this time, but
It's not gonna pass.
it's not gonna pass.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
No, it
even
never does.
crossover days next
I
week.
mean, they always threaten it and everybody gets scared.
Because
They get the legs.
think about it, the Home Builders Association that lobbies for this, I don't think they make the case that it's some personal expression that they're concerned about. And we know, if they're being truthful, that's certainly not it.
They're
You
trying
know?
to sell it though as affordability, that we're encroaching affordability. That's how it's starting to gain traction.
Okay, so
That's the buzzword now,
Yeah.
everything.
They're starting to say that we're impeding affordability. That's where it's starting to get.
well, and to your point though, one of the things that we often will do is we'll say, okay, home builders, bring us your standard plans, right? And even sometimes when we're working on a private development project, we'll have, the developer will hire us, we'll do their plan, we'll make this great walkable community and all these things. And they're like, okay, now we've got these builders and they show us what they're hoping to build. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why do we even bother making great walkable town? This is horrible. And so we'll take their plans and we'll mark them up and we'll say, okay, well, if you took this and you moved this here and, and here's a few simple things that you can do that don't cost any more money. Do that. And then like, well, yeah, but we've already paid to have these plans drawn. I'm like, okay, well, sometimes you make mistakes too, so anyway, I keep encouraging people around the country. I'm like, okay, municipalities, planners, mayors, council members, like, I don't know who shows up at these hearings when the home builders are lobbying for this stuff, but I feel like not enough people do. Because it seems to always pass ultimately. So that's my encouragement to y'all. Don't let it happen to Georgia. Georgia strong. What else? Y'all been quiet.
Well, that HOA land next to you were having issues with.
So far, there's communication with the home association. So we let them try to handle that.
That type of easement. Pretty much through his property to get to all the retention and all that.
The
kind of
retention
stuff.
part.
Oh,
And he voted
We-
forever, so,
yeah,
but then it got out of control, nobody took care of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
They're looking at rules, maybe other ways other than going through people's yards or something, to
Mhm.
get the stuff, just make it easier on selling and buying homes.
Right.
Real estate agents, they're trying to sell you a home, they're not looking half the time at what you got to, we have homes that people bought, but they're in charge of the whole risk, the retention pond is a part of their plat.
Mm.
So the HOA doesn't pay for it, but the homeowner has to.
Interesting.
I think we got a lot of that fixed in our current code, but just want to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I just heard you say HOA. So a lot of the problems in our community is the HOAs. Is there any way in the ordinance, because I know you don't have any control of that, is there any way that you can write specific standards to make these HOAs have certain requirements? Is that something that can be put into an ordinance?
What are they doing? Or not doing?
Well, I mean, I just hear from different people. They're,
Got some great HOAs, by the way.
We
Some
do
of them
have
are
some,
very own it though.
yes, but I mean, like, just to say move forward, like, cause I understand that there'll be an HOA at this new, townhouse community over on Tommy Lee Fuller. But everybody's worried about, are they really going to, cause it's all rental, right? Are they going to hold the standards and everything? And
Yeah.
a lot of times an HOA, it only takes what, 80% of the vote to change the regulations and things like that. So if you've got a company that's owning 80% of the rentals in there, they're gonna control the HOA.
Yeah.
But is there any way to work, because you've asked this a lot about the HOAs, because you say they're not, the city can't hold them to any standard.
That's the big thing. And in council, we'll come up with a list of things and it's like, we are fooling not only the citizens, but the owners, because we cannot enforce it. And yet we keep acting like we can.
Huh.
And I think that's a bit misleading to everybody because we can't go in and tell a subdivision how to, do whatever they're doing. The only thing we might have a control over would be the streets.
Do you guys do development agreements?
Yeah.
So if you do a development agreement, that's a legal binding thing between you and the developer, in which case you could have enforcement authority to, I mean, you probably have to sue them. I don't know what kind
If
of
the
things.
developer gets out, once it's developed and turns it over to the homeowners, is that agreement still in force?
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, it would roll over to whomever it is. But I mean, ultimately, if there are things that the HOA is supposed to do, or that you allowed them to do X in their development because they agreed to do Y, so then you just have that be a regulation, something they're required to do, that you have authority to like.
I don't know. I think that
Yeah.
would be great.
I need to know more specifically, like examples of like, what kinds of things that y'all are worried about or people have dropped the ball on or
Well, we're
whatever.
saying quite often, don't we, Brandon, about, you can only have 10% rentals in the subdivision or 20% rentals. I don't know how much control the city legally has over that type of agreement.
Yeah.
Who monitors it?
That's hard to
Yeah,
enforce.
Yeah.
That's hard to enforce as a city and the HOA too. It's really
You don't
difficult.
know,
Yeah.
unless you see an LLC.
Right. Isn't there some way to look at the tax rolls or
You can.
something, or, yeah, it takes some monitoring, maybe, I don't know how y'all are with AI around here, but maybe that's something, a task for an AI agent to.
We don't believe in using technology. We
Oh,
still
we
have,
don't
we
know
still
how to
handwrite
use it.
most of our stuff.
Oh,
That'd be it on my end. Don't know how to.
We
use
just
it.
now started taking credit cards a few years ago. So I mean, come on now.
can we tap? Yeah, we tap our phone. Well, something to consider, not that not that y'all would need to learn how to do it, but some people at the city would, could set that up and it would be so easy to do something like that. And those, honestly, those little things where when a business is considering, like we're talking about the industrial people or, whatever, and you guys have an economic development person here?
Not anymore.
So we have the Walton County Economic Development, but that doesn't really deal with what
Yeah.
you're talking about. We have the Downtown Development Authority, but
Yeah.
they're only in the downtown corridor, the small
Got it.
area.
Where I was going with that is just somebody or some way y'all can brag about doing little, because it's something like that is very simple, but it sends a message like, oh yeah, we're up on things, could be helpful. And it's where things are going. So, all right. So we're over by 5 minutes. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we are going to talk about infill development, redevelopment, infill. And so come prepared, bring friends, carpool. We don't want to make traffic out here, 6 to 7 tonight. And yeah, this has been very helpful. Thank you. We've been taking notes.
All day for people to walk in.
Yes, we're
and do
here.
the deal.
We're here all day. Like we're literally, that's our office is set up over there in the corner, and we'll just be hanging out, working on y'all's thing. We'll be sketching on some plans. We've already started actually, based on what we heard last night, and so that'll be fun for y'all to see on Thursday evening as well. So thanks for y'all's time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.